So I'm aware I may have left you all hanging a bit yesterday. So I'll bring you back and explain a little bit more what we have here today. Now, this isn't, of course, something they've made specifically for me, although it is, made for me. It's one that's on their website, and they have modified it slightly because they were updating it, and I'm kind of one of the first possibly to get that. So this is actually called the Mutiny, and I'll tell you why in a moment. And how they've changed it is the spine. They've put a very specific distal taper in it now, so it goes. So distal taper means it's thicker here and it's thinner here, but they've done it very specifically over a very specific drop, as opposed to just kind of randomly making it thinner. So it's like 9.5, 9, 8.5, 8, 7, as you'd expect, but they've actually measured it so that it goes specifically along those lines, just to get it particularly accurate. So that's nice of them to do that. And then I obviously chose the brass and the performance grind, and I chose the Mikata handle. And I've had a bit of a chance to use it today. I couldn't actually show you guys that because I didn't have my tripod at work, so I didn't get the opportunity. But I can tell you, it is fantastic. It really just does chop amazingly well. Now, the reason it chops amazingly well is that you have so much control. I'm not entirely sure what it is about this model, but the curvature of the shape, the angle, the length, means you can choose whereabouts you want to on the blade to use, which you can do with any other cookery, obviously. But this one just lends itself to that choice. So I was doing little cuts on thin stuff with the tip, whack, whack, whack. Thicker stuff, I could just drop it down to the sweet spot. A few cuts I tried just further in, just to see how it works, and it works brilliantly well there as well. So you can get it in close and do a chop with this part if you want. You can bring it back for more force and use the sweet spot, and then you can take it back even further and just use the tip with little cuts. And all of those is very controllable, very targetable, very precise. Now, for instance, my Surapati, which is a very similar length to this, I don't have that same control. It just doesn't, there we go, 18 degrees, doesn't lend itself to that level of control. The blade is very similar length, very similar shape. This one is more curved, the other one's straighter. That one, to make it cut properly, you kind of take a big swing, and the tip spit, the speed at which it's going when it hits, enables that blade to slice through, and does so with devastation. This one, I can get the same effect without having to go so fast, so that means I have more control. Now, weight-wise, the Surapati is 590 grams. This is 594. So they're almost the same weight, they're almost the same size. This one has more meat in the blade. The other one has more meat in the handle. This is I don't like the term, but rat tail tang, hidden tang, concealed tang. The other one is full tang, and that means there's more weight in the handle, less weight in the blade, because they're basically the same. This one is more weight in the blade, and the balance point is around here, and it balances just beautifully. The other one kind of rocks slightly side to side, whereas this one, it's just fantastic. Just see what that's like at the top as well. So that's theoretically take these several times just to get it right, I find. 17.95. Targeting 18 degrees. Go 17.95, that will be fine. And then this has got a little bit of a curve in it. 7.2 degrees it reckons, but that's not showing that at the moment. So 17.9. Here we go, 18. And then we're getting 20. So we're not getting the full range, but then the problem is that the curve of this means that I can't get the full range. So there is going to be a slight convex as I sharpen it, but not the full range, which would happen if I could get a full stroke. But at the moment, you can see I can just get quite a small stroke. The edge is okay. I'm not happy with the edge, but you know that's me. Anyway, so yeah, this is called the Mutiny. Why it's called the Mutiny is slightly controversial. The blade itself dates, or the mutiny happened in 1857 to 1858. So the blade is the oldest blade I've got. It's a replica, obviously. It's not, you know, it's not that old. It's a modern version, but that's where it comes from. So this is a very historical, a very old pattern, which probably explains why it's quite thin and quite long, but it's not a, you know, Surapati at all. It's this particular one. So the mutiny, sometimes called the mutiny, sometimes called the rebellion. If it was successful, it'd probably be called the liberation. Sometimes it's called the First War of Independence. Essentially what happened is Britain in the around, I don't know, 16 something or other, first invaded, occupied India, and then after quite a few years the Indians were integrated into the army, and you know the British went along and changed things as they do. The East India Company was running things on behalf of the monarchy over there and doing its own thing. And around 1857 there were tensions brewing because, you know, they'd changed lots of things, and no one was particularly happy because they'd introduced a new rifle with a cartridge that was greased, and the rumour was it was covered in either beef grease or pig grease, and the idea was you took the cartridge, you bit the end off, you put it into your gun, pulled the trigger, bang, it went, fired. Now if it was pork grease, then the Muslims wouldn't have been happy. If it was beef grease, then the Hindus wouldn't have been happy. As it was, I don't know what it was, but essentially what happened is a whole pile of the sepoys, the Indian army, got up and said, no, we've had enough of this, we're taking India back, and a war broke out. So some people joined the British side, some people joined the Indian side, and there was conflict and fighting and punishment and war going on at the time. Now, this was a test for the Gurkhas because they had joined after the 2-year battle between 1814 and 1816, when they decided to call a truce, and the British said, "You guys are such great fighters, we'd like you to join." And ever since then, the Nepalese army, well, some of the Nepalese have gone off and joined the British army as what we know as Gurkhas. So this fight broke out, and obviously the Nepalese are closer to the Indians than they are to the British, and it was worried which side they would come down and fight on. Well, they came and fought for the British because that's what they had signed up to do. They ignored any relationship ties and just went and fought for the British, and it's thought that that was probably a decisive component of the British eventually winning that war and crushing the mutiny. It did take 13 months, I believe, and another month after that before everything was restored to normal. But this was the blade that the Gurkhas used during that conflict. Long, thin, traditional curve to it, fast, efficient. This is the blade they use, and this is the modern interpretation of it. And so far, I can say without a doubt, it's the best cookery that I have ever used. Like I said, I've only used it for a few hours today, just clearing some brush and chopping some things up, and I haven't videoed it, but I will do later on once I put the edge on it that I want to have on it, which will be a slight convex with a 18-degree termination. And but it's just so light and lively and controllable in the hand, and it's comfortable and it balances great. So yeah, look, let me do some more testing with it, but I think I have found my cookery, at least one I'm happy with and one I'm going to use, and let me take you on the journey as I experiment with it. But first, give me a couple of days to sharpen it to the standard and degree that I want. Thanks guys. This is the Kailash Blades Mutiny, and it's the long version, and it's just fantastic.